USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. A couple of seasons ago, American International made a big splash by upsetting St. Cloud State in the first round of the NCAA tournament in Fargo. And since then, the Yellow Jackets have really been on the map.
And joining us this week on USCHO Spotlight, the head coach of now three-time regular season champion, American International, that's Eric Lang. Congratulations, Eric. 3 in a row. I know this one's a little different because it's an East championship as opposed to just being the Atlantic Hockey Champion, but still, a championship's a championship, and your program has to be pretty proud of doing this 3 years in a row.
No, we certainly are, and we won't apologize for what has transpired in a pandemic season. I think in some ways it's more gratifying for our kids, and we want to celebrate that as much as we can. And, unlike, being a professional athlete, you get 4 years to really determine what happens in those 4 years. And I don't want to minimize this by any means. And, having the top seed overall kind of validates, the East and West for us.
When you look at what you've accomplished in 3 seasons, 3 regular season championships and postseason championships, a trip to the NCAA tournament, a regional final in the NCAAs, this is a program that people don't have to go too far back to remember struggles for AIC. What do you feel has changed the most since you've gotten on campus and been able to take over this program?
We have, in a short time here, have turned AIC hockey into a destination place. 5 years ago, I was begging guys to come play here, and it started with that special senior class that almost had 700 points and graduated last year, and they took a risk and, came to AIC and really changed the perception of our program. And, the word we use is there's a lot of people that don't know where Gonzaga is, but they know that they've got a pretty darn good basketball program. And we like to think of ourselves as the potentially a Gonzaga of college hockey here. You may not have heard of AIC, but they've got a pretty darn good hockey program.
I want to look at your season thus far, and we'll say it was a strange season, and stops and starts, and not knowing when you were going to play next. That's going to be something that's difficult on a coach. But you started with 5 straight wins. You ended with 5 straight wins, a couple of mixed results in there against, some good opponents like Army, West Point, the second best team in your pod, and then Quinnipiac. What did you like about this team, and what concerns you maybe with the fact that you haven't played a game in about a month and now you're going to head into the playoffs?
All great questions and great points. We graduated 10 seniors, as I mentioned. They had almost 700 career points, and maybe going into this year, maybe on the surface, it looked like we may take a step backwards or not be as strong as we have been. But this team I have right now is as deep as any team I've ever had. And we've got a 5th line that's as good as our 3rd line. And, I say the strength of our team is the team and our depth. And it's been the stops and starts have been one thing, but I haven't really walked away from the arena. Not one time this year, not really. I've actually liked the way we've played in every single game we've played this season. And that includes what would look like a lopsided loss to Quinnipiac. If you dig deep into that game, like we took 10 penalties that night, and we outshot them, and at times felt like we were carrying the play, and we turn around and play those guys the next night, and we felt the same. And Quinnipiac isn't a good team; they're one of the best teams in the country. And I think walking away from that weekend when we broke it down, where we really feel like we're as good as anybody, and in a weird way, we drew confidence from that weekend. And Army's another very good team that we go up and down the ice against, and we had them a bunch of times in a short duration. And anytime you play an Army West Point, you're going to be battle tested. You're going to be physically contested. And again, we walked away from that with flying colors. So I really, really like our team. And I think we're strong from the nets out. We've got 3 different goalies that have won games this year. We've got 3 different goalies that have had a shutout this year. So again, I come back to the strength of the team is the team for us.
During this time where you've had 7 games in a row canceled, you've had a lot of time with practice and no games. What have you done to keep things fresh and maybe help keep the players stay sharp mentally and physically?
Yeah, I mean, we've done some creative things. Like we had a Jeopardy via Zoom, a team Jeopardy, where we've done some of that. So we're trying to keep our guys engaged away from the rink. Ironically, we've done a really good job in terms of our team with keeping our, positive tests at a minimum. And it's been a little bit unlucky. So when we were down, obviously we couldn't play. And then when we got healthy, our opponents went down. So it'll be 6 weeks in between games for us. And, we do have a bigger roster than most college teams. So we will be able to do some inter squad and some black gold stuff where we can hope to stay sharp here.
One of the great stories around your program that maybe started to get missed a little bit during the COVID is the illness and then recovery and then playing for Eric Otto. Can you tell us a little bit about how things have gone for Eric this year?
Boy, what a amazing story. And, we lean on Eric a lot in terms of, hey, guess what, guys? We might be shut down. Yeah, we might have some protocols in place. We may have to get tested 3 times a week. Whatever we're sacrificing here, we call it a commitment for the unknown. Eric Otto, none of us have done with what he's went through, and we lean on that. And I think it puts things in perspective. We haven't went through any chemo treatments. We haven't been, we haven't went through stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it really grounds things in a hurry. And then on top of it, for Eric, he's been a tremendous player for us. He's one of our best defending forwards we have. He's a selfless player. He's been tremendous in the face-off circle. He's one of our top penalty killers, and he's starting to contribute offensively. And this is the kid we recruited, who was a great player in the USHL, a leader. And, he's always been an outlier for us because we didn't know what we were getting. And boy, he's a really, really good player. And he's a special human being. And we've been able to continue to rally around him and what he's been through in terms of, hey, guys, guess what? What we're going through, it ain't all that bad. We're playing hockey here.
I saw some video from his first game, which I believe was against Army, and a terrific response from the opponents. That must have been a pretty special night for the team.
It was awesome. And the college hockey community and the hockey community in general is just a special group. And I think that we do a good job in our sport of putting aside some things and acknowledging, what's right. And it wasn't, we obviously appreciate what Army did. It wasn't just Army. Sacred Heart the following week, 10 or 12 players come up, tap them on the shin guards. It's pretty neat to see some of those things. And, again, I attribute it, the hockey community is just a great community.
I want to ask you a bit about mentoring. We've talked previously when we've had you on the program, talked about mentorship from Brian Riley when you were an assistant at Army, and mentorship from your head coach and your predecessor, Gary Wright. But now you're in a position where you have the opportunity to mentor not just players, but young assistant coaches and try to help them on the way. How do you approach mentoring for your staff and your players, given the mentoring you've had in your career going forward?
I think in that department, you lead by example. And all I mean by that is sometimes you've got to grab a couple bags off the bus, and sometimes you go out of your way for the people that are the rink attendants and saying hello to the Zamboni driver. And I think anything that attributes to being a good human being and a good person, I think it's I think you can visually see it. And I think our program, we acknowledge it and we celebrate it. So when I get a good message from people here at the Mass Mutual Center, I share that, and they love interacting with our guys. And we've had security guards buying our guys pizza after practice, and the other day they just showed up with a cake for our guys, back to back champions. And I don't think those things happen unless you're good in return. And I always say, like, if winning and losing hockey games is all that we're going to be measured, then boy, things will be pretty shallow here. And, sometimes I talk about being a great husband and a great dad, and those things are important. And, it's really just about, it's open, it's transparent. We share great stories with each other. Sometimes we will play a small game, and the loser has to go, perform a random act of kindness, and then we kind of follow up on it. What does that look like? And some of it may feel corny in the beginning, and we've embraced some of that stuff. And again, it comes back to, things bigger than the game of hockey. And Brian Riley used to always say this, and I love this line: it's just a hockey game. And sometimes we look at things, it's just a hockey game. There's bigger things here.
We'll continue with Eric Lang in a moment.
This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from US College Hockey Online.
More with AIC head coach Eric Lang. As long as the Yellow Jackets keep winning, you get to keep playing at Mass Mutual Center right there in downtown Springfield. What does it mean to be able to keep playing there? And I guess even more broadly, what has it meant to have that terrific facility for the program?
The people of the Mass Mutual Center, they've been amazing to us. And, we're the only tenant in here this year with no American Hockey League play. So we've, from A to Z, they've been super flexible in this pandemic, and, the plans change rapidly. They go from, getting ready to set up for a hockey game, and then us giving them a phone call and saying, hey, the game is off. And they've been patient, and, they've got some great protocols here and some great plans in place. And for us to kind of stay here, first and foremost, you have comfort of your own building, which is always something that you want. You always feel like, whether it's the sight lines or the comfort in just playing is really helpful. And secondarily, I think it gives us an opportunity to kind of stay safe and stay healthy. We're not getting on a bus. We're not, potentially getting in a hotel. We're can just stay with what we've been doing. And, I give our guys a lot of credit. We've been here since late August, and we're one of the only teams in the country that didn't go home for Christmas. We stayed here. We celebrated Christmas. Our guys have missed funerals. They've missed weddings. They've missed a lot of stuff, and the sacrifice and commitment they have made is significant. And be it for only 16 hockey games, but I don't think these guys would trade that for anything in the world. So, staying home and being here has a lot of positive effects for our program.
We're talking with AIC head coach Eric Lang. And Eric, you mentioned that it's been a while since you played a game. You don't have an opponent yet for your next game, but you do know that there's a playoff game on the horizon. What does this week look like for your team on the ice getting ready to play in the playoffs?
We will continue to make sure we have our legs underneath us. We'll be playing potentially 3 in 3 days, and then you got to turn around and potentially our conference final stuff. So we just want to make sure we have our legs underneath us and all of our perishable skills, passing, receiving. And we won't really crank up the intensity till the week of that playoff. We don't want to shoot too soon here. And so it'll be a little bit more casual this week in terms of just making sure we're on the ice and we're enjoying each other and having some fun with it. And then, week leading into playoff, we will be cranked up. And as I mentioned, we have a big roster here. We'll be able to have some inter squad scrimmaging, where we can get significant guys on both sides of it and try and replicate a hockey game, which will be 6 weeks for us before, for that playoff game in between games.
I know that your goal is to win the Atlantic Hockey Championship. If for some reason that gets derailed somewhere, can you make a case? I know Ed and I have talked about it. I've mentioned in bracketology with Jason Moy that it feels like your team has done what it needs to do to get to the NCAA tournament. Can you make your own case, if the committee was to listen to this, why AIC deserves to be in this tournament?
You know what? I believe that we have, whether you want to go off of what we've done here, in our past history, I believe we're 28-4 in our last 32 games or something significant like that. So we've certainly won a lot of hockey games here over the last 2 years. I think we've demonstrated that we are as good as anybody. And, we have the second or third best winning percentage in the country, and you can only beat who you play. And, we're really tidy defensively. And like, if you just look at the numbers across the board, I think we can make a case. We certainly won't assume anything here. And I like the fact that in Atlantic hockey, you have to, for the most part, control your own destiny, and you have to win in to get in. And that, helps create a team that's battle tested and has played under some pressure. So either way, we will assume nothing here. And, the goal for us is going to be to try and win an Atlantic hockey playoff championship and take all those questions out of the equation.
Well, it has been a good season, an excellent season, third straight Atlantic Hockey regular season championship. Eric Lang, best of luck in the playoffs with your Yellow Jackets, and hopefully we'll see you come the NCAA tournament time.
Outstanding, guys. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for all you do for our great game.
That's American International head coach Eric Lang. I picked up on an interesting term, Jim, from Eric that I don't think I've heard before, or at least I've forgotten it, and that was the term perishable skills, passing, shooting, puck handling, things like that. The kind of things that an athlete at any level and in any sport needs to practice over and over so as not to lose the touch. And that has been a big challenge for college hockey and just about any sport over the last year, keeping sharp and keeping on top of things.
You kind of do forget that college athletes, especially, high level college athletes, can lose those skills in a short amount of time. It's not that they lose them. It's just that they may be slow and reaction time becomes a little bit slower. So whether it's completing a pass, getting off the desired shot with the right velocity, right angle, goaltenders being able to pick up the puck quickly, react to movement, make those big saves. All of that can get lost. And if you take long breaks, AIC is one of them. We've seen plenty of teams go on pauses of, 20, 25, 28, 30 days. This might be one of the longest pauses we will see this year, what AIC is going through here heading into the playoffs. But when you look at those pauses, if you don't stay sharp, if you don't find ways to replicate the way games feel and the way the intensity and speed of a college hockey contest feels, you can lose them really quickly.
It's a nice setup for AIC that they have a large roster and are going to be able to have those inter-squad games to kind of get them sharp. They do have a large roster, probably 6 to 8 more players than you would typically see on a college hockey team. 8 defensemen, 22 forwards, 4 goalies. So 30 skaters, 34 total on the roster. That is going to be a big plus, not only to be able to practice going up to games, but also to make sure that you have enough players around to have a full set of skaters on the ice should somebody get ill.
Well, we've talked about this, and maybe Atlantic hockey, the way things have gone down the stretch, as you mentioned on Monday's podcast, that I think it was 9 out of the final 11 regular season Atlantic hockey games were canceled because of COVID. So if you're going to have the need to put, I believe it's 15 plus 2, 15 skaters, 2 goalies on the ice, it's nice to be able to draw from a kind of a pile of 34, in 4 goaltenders in there, 3 of whom, as Eric pointed out, have had wins and shutouts this season. I mean, he's got some elite goaltending in his program. So I think it really is important to have that depth. Hopefully it never comes into play. Hopefully you go through unscathed, and you're looking at probably at most, if you went to the frozen 4 or 6, 7 weeks left in your season, you want to be able to get there healthy, get through it. But if you don't, at least they have some fallback.
I was also touched to hear about the impact of Eric Otto, not just as an inspiration, but what people could draw from that. This quote that he made from Brian Riley, a commitment for the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen the next day, the next hour, and to be able to be committed to persevere through whatever may get thrown at you is not just a healthy approach to athletics, but a terrifically healthy approach to life.
It certainly is. And obviously it's coming from, Brian Riley, who coaches, student athletes who one day won't be playing hockey, but they'll probably be taking a battle in war zones and, putting their lives on the line. So you really do have some sense of, humble a reality that you have to be a little humble to what you're doing in this college life, because things can be a lot different when you're out in the real world. But I kind of remember going back a few seasons when Mercyhurst's longtime trainer, Mike Folger, he's since passed away from cancer, but they had a fundraiser and it was against AIC, and remembering how touching things were between the two teams. Obviously, Eric Otto was sick at that time, going through cancer. And talking with Eric Lang after the game, so he was moved by the entire evening. It was a great tribute within college hockey. But it goes back to something that Eric also said when talking about Eric and what he's been through and the ability to come back and how heroic that feels. College hockey as a community, has always been known as one of the best rallying forces when there's tragedy. And you've seen it in this case. You've seen it in, many different cases going on. For me personally, it goes all the way back to Travis Roy 26 years ago when he was injured, in the many cases of tragedy, difficulty, despair that have come through, since then. College hockey, the hockey community in general, one of the best rallying forces I've ever met in my life.
And to end things on an upbeat note, the accomplishments of AIC on the ice over the past few seasons have been remarkable. They have been a big part of elevating the whole league. Atlantic hockey is a better conference across the board having AIC in it.
Well, there's no doubt. You don't want a team that you just perennially get to write off because they're not performing well. And I look at what Eric Lang has done there and think it's nothing short of miraculous. He took a program that really did not have a lot of success for a long period of time. Great guy in Gary Wright. And I think if you talk about, people who develop fine young men, Gary Wright was at the top of that list. Did it translate to wins? Sometimes not. I'm sure that those players still feel fulfilled for going through that program. Eric Lang, obviously being one of them. But, when you can win at the same time, it's a game changer. And I look at the way that this program is winning. And I thought the analogy he made to Gonzaga basketball is so perfect, because 20 years ago, nobody knew who Gonzaga was. And then they went on a run, and I think it was the Elite Eight, and they made a Final Four. And, now I think they're the number one team. At least the last time I looked at a basketball pool, they were the number one team in the country. And it's, that's a school in the middle of nowhere, Washington, I think, if I remember right. But again, sometimes you don't even have to know where the school is. And maybe people don't know what Springfield, Massachusetts is or anything about it. Maybe they think it was a city on The Simpsons. Who knows? But the reality is, you can build a program off of reputation. And if you can get to an NCAA tournament and win some big games, obviously their upset of St. Cloud a couple of years ago was a real mile marker for them. You keep winning those types of games and you keep having success, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're going to attract some of the best athletes that just want to win. They want to go to college to win. I feel like Eric Lang and his staff are doing that right now.
For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of US College Hockey Online. Visit uscho.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.